Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for My Hero Academia Season 3, Episode 3. And right off the bat, I'll start off by saying this. Apparently I did a little research, and from the way I looked it up, from what I looked up about this adaptation going forward, is that I guess it goes without saying. I guess this goes without saying anyway, considering we got 25 episodes to work with, but it's basically been confirmed that this season will be covering the training camp arc, which we're currently in, the hideout raid arc, which is where all the real epicness begins, and the hero license exam arc in order to finish it off. And I guess it makes sense to end it there, as Aizawa did kind of mention offhand this training camp arc is meant to prepare for the license exam. But at the same time, I often wonder if the hideout raid was the better stopping point. I mean, we definitely would have gotten less episodes probably out of it, especially considering how good the pacing is in this anime adaptation. But at the same time, yeah, I often wonder if the hideout raid would have been the better spot to end from. But I suppose honestly, Bones. But honestly, it's not a big deal because Bones has been doing such an amazing job with this adaptation in just how quick, yet at the same time how faithful the adaptation is, that I guess I can't really complain. Honestly, I trust Bones 110% with this adaptation. So yeah. Um. But anyway, getting to the episode itself, the episode pretty much wastes no time in jumping into a montage of seeing everyone training with their quirks. And what I really loved about that particular scene is that while each method of training was goofy, it gave an interesting insight into the simple fact that because there are so many varieties of quirks in this world, the because there are so many varieties of different methods of different quirks in this world, each student is going to be different with pretty much each having a different power, and to add to that, each method is going to be different as well. Like each student is basically going to find that each student from this whole training arc is going to find that because each one has a different quirk, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can see one person train in a certain that they can see one person train in some way and think that particular method is going to work for them as well. No, this whole training is meant to pretty much find a method of training of training their quirk that works for them, because pretty much if that works for them because that works for them and is honestly suited to strengthen their quirk. And one growing theme I did notice, and honestly it was interesting because one growing theme I did notice in that montage is that aside from Kirishima and I think it was I think it was Ojiro, the tail guy. There's very heavy emphasis in this chapter, specifically with the training, on working alone and not much working as a group, like, which again plays into the fact that, and again the reason I think that does work out, and the reason why that does work with the heavy emphasis on training alone is that, yeah, pretty much because you all have different quirks, it really only makes sense to have one. It really only makes sense to each in order to each find your muse and what works to basically strengthen your quirk and your quirk alone. So it is kind of strange how it honestly, this is an interesting. And this isn't actually the first time that this whole solo thing of this whole solo thing in My Hero Academia has played into effect before. We've already seen this before in the in the sports festival arc, where pretty much everyone was against each other. Like this series, it does play somewhat of an emphasis on teamwork, but at the same time, it also puts heavy emphasis on the individual, which honestly is in its own way kind of refreshing too. No, and Now, having said that, can we just take a moment and appreciate what Todoroki said to Izuku in this episode? Because his little speech to Izuku about uh, about him butting in and basically trying to change Koda's mind about and him trying to change Koda's mind about heroes. If you really think about it, that one speech Todoroki gave to Izuku just spat in the face of every shonen hero who's used the Talk no Jutsu as an end-all be-all method of solving problems and basically converting every single antagonist over to the good side. Like, honestly, like if Todoroki's words in and honestly the thing that also another thing to add to that of what makes Todoroki's words so great is that in many respects, like the pretty much the whole thing he said about actually needing to learn in action needing to learn about what makes the person tick and whatnot. That that actually in many respects mimics real life. Like don't like honestly don't it's from much okay it's from much okay in order to do the whole in order to talk it out and be and in order to talk it out and in order to help people, but don't go spouting stuff. Don't go spouting stuff at random and expect people to listen unless you can back it up or prove what you're saying is true. And while the show itself can be goofy, or the series in general can be goofy, I feel that this whole that that Todoroki's whole speech alone just shows that My Hero Academia does have a bit more of a grounded sensibility with its morals in the sense where yeah, not in the sense where yeah, you basically can't you basically can't use the talk no jutsu for everyone. It's not gonna work on everyone. You actually need to you actually need to use actions. You know, words aren't gonna be enough to cut it in this universe. You actually have to use your actions in order to back them up too. And yeah, I feel that this is one of those and again, I hate to shit on Naruto because it's done so much for basically the whole it's done a, it's Naruto's done a lot more has done just as much for the anime and manga community. It's one of the found it's one of the things that has started this whole new wave of anime and manga, but at the same time I do have to recognize its issues and I think My Hero Academia almost kind of fixes the one issue I've always had with Naruto is which every single problem was solved by just talking it out, and there was never really any proof to back it up. But here, Izuku actually needs proof in order to back up what he's saying in order to convince Koda. So yeah, it's just good to see a little more it's good to see that My Hero Academia does keep itself grounded in that respect. And so, other than that, we get introduced to the rest of the Pussycats, and yeah, out of all of them, I need to talk about Tora or Tiger or whatever you want to call him, because he's the one that made the biggest impression on me. And being a fan of any and everything Full Metal Alchemist, I was getting some very heavy Armstrong vibes from this guy. Just in the way he talks, his mannerisms, his physique, hell, just in the way he poses. He poses and just has this kind of like whimsical background behind him. Like, yeah, that's basically Armstrong for you in many respects. And yeah, that's basically Armstrong for you. And of course we see that and of course we see Tora basically training Izuku, which is good because I guess it pretty much shows and it was good to show that pretty much all the Pussycats have a certain specialty in order to help the students train. So, and in Tora's case, he's basically training everyone who basically has some kind of physical quirks. So, it's good that we got those ground rules set up. But yeah, Tora, you remind me so much of Armstrong right now that it's actually kind of ridiculous. Um, and after that, we get a full look at the villains as they've made their move on the UA students in the end of the episode, and most of the designs look pretty damn cool. Like every single one of the villains, like pretty much the animators and artists, they basically got the likeness of the characters from the manga down to a T, except for one. And believe it or not, it's one you might not think about. The character's name is Moonfish. He's basically the guy who looks like he's wearing a rubber bondage suit, and I knew beforehand just from looking at the concept art I wouldn't like it, but yeah, it's definitely not as detailed as it was in the manga. In fact, it's kind of silly looking in the anime, whereas in the manga, like I'm not gonna pretend it wasn't silly, but in the manga, I could take his design a little more seriously. As it did kind of look a little terrifying, but here it's really a problem for me in the anime because there just isn't enough detail on Moonfish's design for me to say, yeah, I take this guy seriously. Um, and of course, at the very last moments of the episode, we see that one of the villains is approaching Koda, and it looks like one of the scenes from the opening will be happening a lot sooner than I thought. In fact, again, the adaptation was spot on, adding very little to slow the episode down. In fact, the only major changes to really note in this episode was that when Izuku mentions All Might and Gran Torino in passing, we get brief flashbacks actually showing them. Like in the manga, it was just him mentioning them and that was it. But in the anime, they actually added like brief flashbacks to showcase them. But yeah, but other than that, like again, this was a near perfect adaptation. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have. And should you like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. That and that of I signing off. Later, guys.